calling all misfits, rebels, leaders, and teachers, welcome to the one place where the only way to fit in is by standing out, where big goals are met with even bigger action, and where we talk through then tackle all things entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Kelsey Knudsen, and this is the Get Shit Done podcast. Welcome to the Revolution. All right, here it is. This episode is me owning my shit and finally practicing what I preach. You're going to want to stick around because I have a crazy announcement. I cannot believe I am doing this, but here we go. I have a big announcement at the end and wandering eyes. Many people have been asking and requesting for this, and today is the day. So let's jump on into the episode. Today, we're talking about authenticity. If you are someone who struggles with getting ideal clients, maybe you have that team member that's not quite like a fit into the company culture. Maybe your social media is kind of boring you out. Like you're, going to make some content and you're kind of bored of what you're saying. You're relying on Chat GPT to tell you how to sound more exciting, more interesting, more inspirational. If any of that is you and you can relate to this, then this is going to be helpful for you because I've realized something. Though authenticity is a core value of mine, and I would argue if you meet me on the streets, if we run into each other at a restaurant or something, or at the airport, or my favorite, in an airport in California, but if we run into each other, I feel like what you see is what you get. Like most people who meet me in real life versus internet version here, there's not a lot of difference, but there's a lot I keep from you. And this is not an episode where I'm going to share all my guts and just tell you every little detail of my life. I still believe in having some privacy, but I do think that there is something to authenticity that is lacking, not only in my brand, but in many others I see out there. And I did some research for this episode, so we're going to talk about it. Authenticity, for the sake of this episode, I came up with a definition. I looked at a few, and this one is the one that feels like it fits most in the direction I want to take this episode. But authenticity is true to one's spirit, personality, or character. And it's a word that has been thrown around a lot. It was the word of the year, I believe, by a business magazine in 2023. We're a little late to the trend, but I think that's okay. And it's something we hear a lot. And it's something that when you're consuming content and you're looking at brands, the big ones you know and love, but also the small ones that you end up supporting, I think at the core of it is we're all looking for connection. We all want to feel like seen and heard, and that I feel comfortable around you. If I'm going to support your business, whether that's listening to a podcast or purchasing your product or recommending it to a friend, I want to feel confident that I'm supporting someone else who I can relate to. I don't have to agree with every single thing, but I think we all crave this sense of just, like raw honesty. Maybe it's the filters, maybe it's the inundation of social media and marketing, and maybe it's just the fact that our attention spans are literally this small. I don't know what it is, but I just crave people to just like be themselves. And I try to practice that, but I realized there was a big gap, and I'm going to share at the very end what I'm doing to rectify it. But I thought we could dive into how authenticity not only is something you should do just to feel more confident in your own skin, but there's data that backs up why it's important as a business owner. So let's jump into the research that I found. I'm just going to caveat this by saying this is a hard thing to study. I found multiple studies by Harvard, by Stanford, that looked into this idea of authenticity. And because it's a feeling, it's hard to really measure the success of it. I was trying to find some hard data that would tie maybe revenue or profit to it, and it was really difficult. But what I did find is this study back in 2021. It was a survey by a place called Stackla. They found that 88% of consumers would say that authenticity is important when deciding what brands to support. 88% is a lot. Again, it's a survey, so take that as a grain of salt. But at the end of the day, I think what we're being told and what we're feeling ourselves is we want to feel that connection. We want to feel people are being trustworthy. They're being honest. They're being themselves. And I think there's business reasons for that. I think the data shows that too, but I think we as consumers, if you think of how you purchase, what clothing you wear, what coffee you're drinking, what stupid big dumb cup you're carrying around these days, if you think of all those things, I bet at the root of it, there's some level of authenticity, whether an influencer told you about another brand and you connected with their authenticity, or if the brand itself did something that made you really speak to them. So All that to say, 88% of consumers think that it's important. If nothing else, I think this should be your permission slip to add in a little more authenticity into the work that you're doing, especially when you think about social media. I don't know about you, but I am over the vanilla. I am over everyone doing the same TikTok dance. I'm over the trends and the audio and what's hip and cool. I want real connection. And I think that also is more exciting for me when I think of content to create for you, because this is content. And at the end of the day, this is for you. So if I'm going to take the time to do it, I'm going to do it in a way that feels genuine to me. That's why I'm wearing my comfy clothes today. And that's why I'm having a conversation on this specific topic, because I really think a lot of people are getting it wrong. And I don't want that for you. So if you feel like this is how you know you may be missing the mark. If you are losing clients, if you are, maybe you have people reach out to work with you and they're nice, the project is fine, the service is fine, but it's not something you want to post about on social media. It's not something you're putting in your portfolio. There's something just like not quite a full hell yes about it. If you have those team members, again, who like fit in and they do an okay job, they get the tasks done, but that next level of like, oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with these people, they're like family. If you just feel like that last bit is missing, I would challenge you to really think about how authentic you are being in your brand. I think a lot of business problems stem from lack of authenticity. And if we peel it back a step even further, if you're not being authentic, it could be because you don't know who you are. You haven't taken the time to really sit with that and think about, how do I really show up in this world? And how do I want my business to be represented? You know, I think that there's so many nuances to this point. And again, I think it's something I pride myself on to a point. But this last bit that I'm changing today, this last little thing, and it scares me. You can tell I'm a little hesitant. But this last little bit, I think, is me really practicing what I preach. And I hope your takeaway from this episode is that, like, you should go for it too. You should be authentic too. As usual, I think it's important to be tactical. I just wanted to lay the groundwork and help you understand why authenticity as a business owner is so important. I'm going to break it down into a couple tips that I think will help in that process that still protects you, because I'm a very private person. I love to keep things close to the chest. When I'm out with my family or doing things with my friends, I'm not the one who's filming everything. I actually kind of hate it, to be honest. If I could just live under a rock and have a little hobby farm and still have the impact that I do and help people in the way that I do, I would. But in order for me to connect with people like you and really live out my purpose and help as many people as I can, I have to get over that fear, and showing up is more worth it than not. So I've learned that. I share what I can, but just letting you know, like, this is not in my nature to share parts of my life, but I'm realizing how important it is. And that's why I'm challenging myself to be more authentic, and I hope you will be too after this episode. But like I said, let's dive into some more tactics, because that's why we're here. Okay. How do we dial up the authenticity? How do we do it? Like, what are the steps, Kelsey? What are the things I need to do to make sure I do this and do it effectively? First thing is this non-sexy answer. You need to know who the hell you are. And newsflash, if you're a business owner and you've been in it for a couple years, that might have changed. What got you to this point of success in your business may have changed. So I encourage you, first step number one, if all you're posting is the services you provide or before and afters, and there's nothing else, there's no juice left, I would book a cabin in the woods. That's my style. Maybe your style is more like go to Vegas alone. Wherever you get inspired, I would go have a solo CEO vacation, and I would really just take the time to answer the question, who am I? When I'm not here providing, value to my audience, when I'm not interior designing, when I am not taking photos of my clients or editing or just doing the business mundane tasks, who am I? What do I want people to say about me? What do I want people to know about me? When I'm not in the room and someone else is speaking about me to people, what do I want them to say? And I've learned that your business cannot be your full identity. I've also learned it's okay if you love what you do. And so I have this duality where it's like, I am the person who a huge part of my identity is wrapped in my business. It's literally my maiden name, which is crazy. But I truly love the work I do. I work in business, on business more than I probably should. It's on my mind a lot. And when I think about my interests outside of work, it makes sense. I'm the person, if I am not working, here's what I'm doing. I love playing games. I love trying to solve puzzles. I love puzzles. I love Sudoku. I love listening to true crime podcasts and trying to solve them before they share what happens next. I love movies that get you thinking, where you're trying to figure out what happens next. I am such a strategic person in my personal life. I like to try to make sense of things. I like to dissect things and put them together and make them better. And that's how I tackle my life. So a lot of my identity, my authenticity, it comes from that. And I'm not ashamed to say, like, I love the work that I do and it's a huge part of who I am, but it can't be the only thing that I am. And that's something that I always have to work on. I've shared transparently. I struggle with that sometimes, but I found some interest in things and passions outside of work. I hope to share more of those because that adds the human side to what I do. And if you're feeling a little rebellious, I think being rebellious is sharing more of who you are because it shows what makes you you. And there's reasons for that. I don't want to jump ahead of myself, but there are strategic business reasons for that too. So step one, in the tactical side of things, know who you are. And if you don't, book a solo vacation, go be alone, go be with your thoughts, and really ask yourself that question. Maybe that means inviting more play into your life, finding more hobbies, more interests. Maybe that's spending more time with your friends. Find ways to reignite that if that's something that you feel like you've lost. Number two, your business needs to feel aligned before it can feel authentic. So if you are in an industry you fell out of love with, and I know I'm talking to some specific business owners right now who feel stuck or shackled to their business because on paper it's successful. They're making a good salary. They've exceeded their corporate salary they had 3 years ago, but they feel stuck and they don't want to do this forever. If that is you, you may need to reassess your business structure as a whole. And it's hard to feel authentic when you're in a place of desperation. And if the reality is like you got to eat your vegetables before you have dessert and dessert is authenticity, then that may be the reality that you're in. I have a business owner that I've worked with in the past who really is tapping into the spiritual world. That is something that's super important to her. She wants to help other women through it. It's been transformative in her personal life, in her career. She's built this beautiful business that is not in that industry. And I remember when the first times we met, I felt like there's two versions of her. There's like the corporate business version of her, and then like this personal, beautiful soul who's so self-aware and kind and just like an energy you want to be around. But it felt like there was a total duality. And the first thing I said to her is like, we got to get in alignment. And the reality is your business is paying the bills. So instead of just closing up shop and launching a brand new business, how can we make micro adjustments to make your current business as it is? Maybe start to call in some of those clients who have the same values you have. So just because you're out of alignment doesn't mean you need to start from scratch and throw everything away. It could simply mean making some adjustments in the type of clientele you're seeking out or making some adjustments in how you work. And I think that alignment piece is huge because once you are more aligned in the work that you are doing, it is easier to be more authentic. You know, I used to have a hair salon, it's no secret, but truthfully, the work I'm doing today, I was just thinking about it today too. In my gratitude, I am like living out my dream. Like if 16, 17, even 20-year-old Kelsey knew that I was doing what I'm doing today, she would freak out. Like I truly feel like I am doing what I am meant to do. And I am so fulfilled in the work that I'm doing. But the truth is when I was doing hair, I couldn't see how to do this. And the reality was the hair I was doing was supporting my life. It allowed Matt to go back to school. It allowed me to go on some cool vacations and just be a 20-something and waste it on stupid dinners and dates and all that stuff. At the end of the day, the reality was that business was my lifeline and I had to acknowledge that truth. I couldn't share the business tips I do now to my hair clientele audience. Maybe hindsight 2020, maybe I could have created another social media account and started putting out this content just to get that passion out of me. But at the time, there was realities to the business I had built. And so it took changing my business just slightly. So I started attracting very growth-minded people who had goals and dreams and were not afraid to pivot careers. And at least if I'm doing hair, which I loved for that time, but it's not my lifelong love, if that makes sense. But at least the conversations were interesting and were more aligned. So that really helped me out. And I think that may be the chapter that you're in right now. And that's okay if that's your reality. But it was hard for me to be authentic as Kelsey, the hair salon owner, because my business didn't feel authentic anymore. It was good enough, it hit a lot of boxes, but it wasn't a grand slam like this current business is for me, where I feel like part of my brand is literally authenticity. When I do all the core value exercises, when I explain what I do to people and my approach and what makes me unique, authenticity is at the core for sure. So all that to say, if you are not feeling aligned in your business, see if you can make some micro adjustments in that, which will then free up some more room and capacity for you to show up and be more authentic. But here's what you need to know about authenticity. This is step 3, but it's just more of an awareness I need to tell you. You're going to get more hell yeses, and you're also going to get more no's, and that's okay. What it's going to take out is that gray area, the lukewarms, the people you really have to work hard to sell. It takes that away, because if you do this right, and there's a way, in my opinion, where you can do it ethically and still be a kind human, but if you can be authentic and genuine, you will also be a little bit polarizing. There, I said it. You will be a little polarizing. And if you listen back a couple episodes, I talked about how this podcast was changing, and at the root of it was this conversation around authenticity. And it's because the more authentic I am, and I'm honest, if you are brand new to business or just getting started, I am not the best coach for you. And there was versions of my business and my life where I wanted to help everybody. But I've learned the more that I've done this, and the more I think about the clients I work with and what ones really make a lot of changes and growth in their business and what ones struggle, the ones who do well and we mesh really well together, radical accountability, very strong work ethic, growth-minded. They take responsibility if things go wrong. They're not afraid to take action, and they are not afraid to really dream big and then do the stuff. And it's hard to really tap into that if you're brand new, because there's just some realities when you start a business. You kind of have to be for everybody. You kind of have to try all the things. And if you're struggling to ball on a budget in the beginning and you're looking at getting a second job, it's going to be hard for me to coach you, because that tells me you're not all in. There are seasons where I know life, sometimes you have to make those sacrifices. But my thing, anytime I have struggled financially, it was like, this is my thing. This is the thing I'm doing. Even if I have to get a side job a couple hours here, I am not pouring any extra energy in growing that. I'm doing the bare minimum to fund this thing, and then I'm going to grow to the next level of financial peace that I need to be at. But all that to say, you need to know that some people aren't going to like this change in you, and that's okay. And that's what I am in real time realizing. Like, your numbers on social media may go down. You may get some comments of like, ugh. I think I had someone comment once way back. I remember in the beginnings of my coaching business, I literally made a little reel back when those were kind of new with an American flag coffee mug, and someone commented negatively about the American flag. That's a whole nother topic. We will not dive into it. But what that person doesn't know is I'm extremely patriotic, because my immigrant grandma came here and was super proud to be here. And I was raised by this grandma, my whole family, but I have this memory of my grandma just being so proud and grateful and thankful to be in this country. And I remember helping her take her citizenship test. I would quiz her because I was learning the states at the same time. And it's such a special core memory to me that literally even in my logo has a tiny bit of Americana in it, because it's a huge part of who I am in my story. And even though I have immigrant grandparents, it's a special memory to me. And there's parts of the American story that I really resonate with. This idea of entrepreneurship and like the sky is the limit. You get to build what you want from this. Like, all of that stuff is so important to me. And I remember innocently sharing this video of making a coffee. And it wasn't even about the mug, but just the fact that it was in it. It bothered me that it bothered somebody else. And today, Kelsey, you can gently see yourself out. If that's it, if that's the one thing I do that is really polarizing to you, then maybe we're not a fit, and that is okay. And you just need to know that the more authentic you are and you show up in that way, you're going to get some of that. And again, that's okay. I think you have to be in a place where your why is bigger than that rejection. And that's where I'm at. I've realized like by doing this, it's like cleared out the weeds and it allows all these beautiful flowers to flourish and grow. And it's hard because it means some people who I love and I adore are never going to make it. They are going to struggle to be entrepreneurs. They are going to be the ones who go back to corporate because they have to. And I can't save them all, and that sucks, but it allows me to pour better and more strategically in the people who do need me and I am the best person for. So I'm just sharing this as a cautionary tale. The more authentic you are, you're going to get more hell yeses. You are also going to get more no's, and that is okay. Here's the other deal. You need to know how to showcase authenticity in two different ways. Number one, with your team members, and number two, with potential clients and the world. When we talk about team members and authenticity, I also think there's this side of small business where authenticity and casual, it's a fine line. And I think this is where a lot of business owners struggle because they don't want to be, I don't want to be a dictator. I don't want to be micromanagey. That's the things I hear all the time. But every single client I have worked with, we do some level of team development. And it's because they are actually not being strict enough and their team is struggling. And it shows up in different ways. It's not just like this fluid conversation where an employee is like, hey, Kelsey, I wish you would tell me exactly what you want from me because I don't know what to do every day. And the business owner is like, oh yeah, no problem. It doesn't work like that. It shows up in different ways. It shows up in that person coming in late. It shows up in that person wearing outfits that you wouldn't wear and you kind of make a look, but they don't change their behavior. It comes up in them getting second jobs and not telling you. It comes up in them doing a cute quit where they just quietly leave, and I think at the end of the day, we don't want that and they don't want that. And it's this misalignment thing. And that's where authenticity can be fantastic, but it also it can spiral out when you have teams very quickly. An example I'm going to give when I think of authenticity from the team side of things and getting your team on board, it's like you need to be super clear on who you are. You can see how that's super important, right? But from there, you need to be able to articulate how their authenticity can fit into the brand and where the boundaries are. Because even if you picture it like a Venn diagram where you have that overlap in the middle, there's still a boundary where it's not okay. It's too casual or this isn't a work appropriate thing. And regardless of brand, I can think of brands that are super casual, big brands, right? Super casual, funny, very like in the clothing that their team members wear, how they speak, how they communicate. We can all picture those big corporations that run that way. Then we can picture ones that are more formal, buttoned up, high end. At the end of the day, they know where their boundaries are. And if you're not able to articulate that to the team, they're going to struggle. The example I love to give is MAC makeup. Back in the day, Baby Kelsey used to be a makeup artist for them. I was a freelancer, which meant I floated around locations. And back when I was there, I can't speak to how it is now, but when I was there, the wardrobe was black head to toe. And that was a non-negotiable. Like that was your work attire. You also had to wear makeup. But what I loved about it is you would see people who would do very minimal makeup, but it was just tastefully done all the way up to extreme cut crease, multiple colors, drag almost level. It was a wide range, but it was all MAC product, MAC makeup, and that was okay. And then black head to toe, you would have people who would take that and make it more kind of glam. You'd have people who make it more rock and roll. You had people who made it just kind of more modern, basic, all kinds of things they would do with their attire. They all knew they had to wear black. And I'm sure there are people who got in trouble for dress code back then, probably still today. But all that to say, that's a great visual reminder of like how you can have authenticity or individuality in a company, but still have those core boundaries laid out so the team members know what's expected of them. And I think that's something that people get wrong and they're afraid to articulate it. So if authenticity is something you want to add into your team dynamic, just have that awareness that you need to create and communicate those boundaries, but also allow some freedom within the brand. I mean, another example is my brand. Literally, the word shit is in the podcast. But if you listen to an episode, I'm not throwing F-bombs and all that stuff throughout the entire episode. A tasteful shit never hurt nobody. But I'm very strategic and I do it to kind of jar you and grab your attention. But there is a boundary. I would not say the F word over and over. There's certain words I wouldn't say. There's a frequency in cussing I wouldn't use in my brand. And that's on me as the business owner to articulate what are those boundaries when it comes to our verbiage, what's okay and what's not, what's casual, but what's concise enough. the verbiage and branding of my business is kind of hard to articulate. And so it's something we're constantly iterating on. But I'm just sharing that example of authenticity because it's authentic, but still intentional. And if the team gets it wrong, that's on me to recommunicate and help them understand why, and then create that new boundary. The other piece with authenticity where we have to be really mindful and aware is how we show up to our consumers. Again, the podcast piece, I think that's a good example of what we would cuss on, what we wouldn't, how much is it an asterisk. There's times where symbolically the SHIT is spelled out. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it depends on the room or the font or if it's on merch. It's so intentional how it's used versus not used. And I think that you need to understand when you think of authenticity, what is that comfortability level? A great place to think of this is Instagram stories, right? So if you are working on having more authenticity in your business, I think a great place to start is your stories, showing a little bit sneak peek, day in the life, behind the scenes. Before you pick up that camera and do that, think about what you're comfortable sharing. Like, how far are you willing to go? And if you're not sure, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm going to say it. A great starting place is to look at influencers because they are in the business of authenticity. Air quotes, because it has really gone far. And I have opinions on that too, but I want to keep this from the business side of things. But influencers are in that business. And so there's probably ones that give you major ick. And you're like, I would never do that. I can't believe they're monetizing their children in that way. And then there's probably ones that you think are funny or entertaining or relatable, or you find yourself constantly searching their profile. Why? And I think the more you can come up with a game plan before you pick up the phone and just go for it, it's going to be better for you. Because just like you have boundaries with your teams of what is inbounds and outbounds for authenticity, the same needs to be said for you and how you create your content for your consumers. Because you don't have to show every little thing that happens in your life. You can be authentic and still have a boundary with that. So all this to say, I told you I was going to give a big announcement at the end. Here it is. If you did not know, today is my 1-year wedding anniversary. And if you did not know, both Matt and I wrote our own vows. I think I'm a little bit funny. I don't know if I'm like a comedic level, but I think I have some ha-ha moments. I would say that Matt's really funny. He's also a fantastic writer. He's also talk about polarizing and authentic. He is very true to who he is. And he definitely has people who love him, and he definitely has people who totally disagree with him. And all that to say, our wedding was really an example of how you can do that in a respectful way. And I am going to share my wedding vows on the internet. I waited an entire year to do this because I was afraid. And I realized that was not being authentic. I love this person. I don't agree with everything that he has to say or how he says it, but I love him and there's so much respect between the two of us. And I cannot tell you how many people have requested the YouTube video just because it's pretty funny. It's a pretty good roast. But all that to say, I've decided I'm going to put it on YouTube. So if you're curious for whatever reason to watch that, you're welcome to. And I realize not that many people probably will. It's probably just going to be my friends and family. But I wanted to share that genuine experience because I need to live into my full authenticity. And that comes with potential risk of people maybe seeing something they don't agree with. And that's okay. That's okay because this is a part of my life. It's a part of my story. And I don't know. I just think that it's funny. It's beautifully done. We wrote our own vows. Our officiant is a really close friend. The three of us wrote them ourselves independently and didn't share them with anyone. So it's really raw and it's funny how it all just came to be. And all that to say, I really want to be authentic in that way. So it may not be a big deal to you that I'm doing this. I don't know. I feel a little exposed, but I also am super excited for where this can go because I want to show that it can be done. And in a world where we have such polarization and such polar opposites and people who feel like they're in this camp and that camp and pointing the finger and hating each other, now more than ever, I hope that me in this little tiny way shows that like there's room for both and. You can have your opinions, you can be close to people who you disagree with, and you can do it in a respectful way where you still love each other. And you can be with people who you agree with and put out your own opinions and be authentic and still do it in a kind way. So all that to say, that's the big announcement. Again, I'm sure it'll be like 20 people and my mom watching it, but I just wanted to share that I am practicing what I preach. I'm putting myself out there, even though it scares the crap out of me. And not that you have to be that extreme, but I just encourage you to really look at your business and how you're showing up for your team and in the world as a business owner, and really think about adding more authenticity into the work that you're doing. Authenticity leads to trust, and that's just going to attract people who really love you and the work that you're doing. And I could just tell you how fulfilling that really is. So that's the big announcement. I hope you found that interesting. If you're listening to this episode and you're like, oh my gosh, I know I need to be more authentic, but I am terrified and I've just been hiding behind my business. I don't know how to show up as who I am, and I don't even know how to give control, relinquish control, or maybe have my team members do Instagram takeovers or whatever that looks like. If authenticity sounds enticing, but you don't know how to execute on it, and it gave a little lump in the throat moment, reach out. I'd love to have a conversation. I'm on Instagram at Kelsey Marie Knudsen. And this is also something that I fold into the mix when I'm working with my clientele. I'm all about really aligning your work with who you are and being authentic and true to yourself. And I just think all of us should operate that way. So if that's something you want to explore and really have someone support you through, I'm happy to have that conversation. Just send me a message. Thank you, and we'll catch you next time. Hey, thanks for being a part of the Get Shit Done revolution. My hope is this episode sparked a fire in you, equipped you with some practical next steps, or inspired you to take action towards your goals. If it did, please help spread the word by sharing this episode or leaving a review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you're tuning in. Now it's time for me to hand over the keys and let you get shit done.